I wanted to share some experience witnessing to Mormons for the past 6 years. About 6 years ago, I had two sisters came to my house and they challenged me to dive into the church and learn about their doctrines and see if it's true or not. So I did accept the challenge. So since then I've been learning about the religion, and when I began learning, that's when I felt like God is calling me to bring in the gospel. So I've been doing it since then for the past 6 years. And I want to share a couple of things from that experience. There are 3 topics I focus on. That's the nature of God, the person of Christ, and the gospel. So those are the 3 main topics where most of my conversations were about. So on the nature of God, in the Book of Mormon, Moroni 8:18, they have a verse, God is not a partial God, neither a changeable being, but he is unchangeable from all eternity to all eternity. So that's a reflection of the traditional view of God, that God is unchanging from all eternity. So I bring this one up to them and I ask them a question. Do you believe that God knew less than he knows today in his existence? And then it kind of makes him think. And if they say yes, because the Mormons, they believe God became God and God learned to be God. So God was not God from all eternity. Joseph Smith said that the statement from the King Follett sermon, he said that we have imagined and supposed that God was God from all eternity. I refute that idea. So that's what Joseph Smith said. He refuted the God who was God from all eternity. So the Moroni 8:18 challenges that quote directly. If they say God knew less at some point, then that's change in knowledge. That means God learns, and he does not know today what he will know tomorrow, or tomorrow he knows something that he didn't know yesterday. So that's the change in knowledge. But the Moroni 8:18 says God is unchanging from all eternity. So that's a direct collision to their doctrine of becoming like God, or their God became God. They have a statement in their church about becoming like God. It says this: as man is, God once was; as God is, man may become. So that statement is a perfect illustration of change, because between man and God is a big difference. So to get to the Godhood, you have to change a lot. And according to them, you have to learn to be gods, as Joseph Smith said. So that question to the missionaries, do you believe God knew less than he knows today, is a direct challenge to their whole belief system. So the Mormon God, he learned to be God. He became stronger, smarter, faster, more powerful, more authority, more glory. So the Mormon God learned, and they call it exaltation, and they say that from one degree to another is how their God became God. Of course, that's a direct collision with the classical view of God in a Christian church, because we as a Christian, I'm a Bible-based, born-again Christian, so we believe that God doesn't change. So God is infinite, so God doesn't learn. So God knows everything, and his knowledge is infinite. So there's no end to his knowledge. It's infinite. There's no number to his knowledge. Like you can't say it like there's 1,000 pieces of knowledges and God learned, or God knows 1,000 pieces of knowledges, and that's that's all of his knowledge. No, God's knowledge is infinite. There's no number. It's just infinite, and he knows it now all, and he knew all that from all eternity, and that never changed. There's another verse I want to mention from the Book of Mormon, is Moroni 7:22, where it says, God knowing all things, being from everlasting to everlasting. Again, that's another reflection of the classical position, God knowing all things. being from everlasting to everlasting. So if you combine that one with Moroni 8:18, God does not change. God is unchanging from all eternity. That means in knowledge, take a knowledge by itself, God never changed. So he always knew everything, and it never changed. But in a Mormon religion, God learned to be God. In the King Follett sermon, Joseph Smith said that you've got to learn to be gods as all gods have done before you. That's a direct statement. That's a direct quote from that sermon. So within the Mormon religion, they have two contradictory positions about the nature of God. So the Book of Mormon reflects the biblical position, just talking about those two verses. They reflect classical Bible position about God. At the same time, Joseph Smith believed in God, who became God, who learned. So that's a different view of God. That's a direct collision. I understand that if they would hold to one position, then it makes sense. It's kind of make a choice, either classical God never learned or the Mormon God learned. So, and then you're going to make a choice. In this case, I understand, but the Mormons, they have both positions, and they are directly contradictory. So the Book of Mormon, it's in a way, it's like a worm on a hook to get you to their system. But then once you get into the system, you have to obey the laws. Because third article of faith says that by the atonement of Jesus Christ, all mankind may be saved by obedience to laws and ordinances in the gospel. And 2 Nephi 25:23, after all you can do. So you're saved by grace after all you can do. So once you get that worm on a hook and you become a Mormon, you learn about these laws that they have. You have to obey in order to get to the highest degree of glory. And they have 3 levels of heaven. And to get to the highest degree, you need to obey all of the laws. So it's Christ plus your obedience and your best efforts equals you will get to the highest degree of glory. So that's the Mormon position in a nutshell. So this is pretty much what they believe, and I feel sorry for them because they have such a contradictory position. And the missionaries talking about Moroni 8:18, they can't explain that one. They have to twist that one. They have to interpret it to the point where God is changing, because they can't really say that God is unchanging. I've been to one of the Mormon temples, and there I propose this situation with Moroni 8:18 and Joseph Smith, King Follett sermon, to one of the Melchizedeki, the person who is dressed in white, and he holds the Melchizedeki priesthood. And so I presented the situation to him, and I explained everything, what I've told you. So, and the way he was agreeing that, yeah, God doesn't change, yeah, he always knew everything, and that never changed about God. So he knew everything from all eternity, and that never changed. So that's what he affirmed when I told him about Moroni 8:18. And he agreed that God doesn't change. And then when I brought up the King Follett sermon by Joseph Smith, he began to change his mind. In a way, he kind of began thinking. And the interpretation he gave me towards Moroni 8:18, how he interpreted on the spot, he just made up on the spot his interpretation. And his interpretation was, since God became God, since then, he is unchanging from all eternity to all eternity. Think about it for a second. Since God became God, since then, he is not a partial God, neither a changeable being, but he is unchangeable from all eternity to all eternity. Since he became God. That's what he told me. So that's like saying, I'm 36 years old. So that's like saying since I become 36 years old. I have always been 36 years old from all eternity to all eternity, and that never changed. You know, think about it for a second. So this interpretation gave me an old person. He was in his 70s, close to 80s, and he told me that. Okay, so that interpretation came from him, and that's kind of common interpretation because I've heard exactly the same one from another bishop. So that's one of the interpretations that they have, and that's a very contradictory interpretation. There's a logical collapse in it. So I don't know why he even said that. I mean, he just said it to maybe get rid of me, or just to protect his religion for the sake of protecting religion at the expense of knowledge and reason and logic. So he had to suppress the logic to say those things. I do love the Mormons. I mean, I have a great respect for them. They have lots of zeal, the Mormon missionaries. So I presented the same situation to many missionaries, and in 6 years nobody answered that. Moroni 8:18, 7:22 versus the Kim Follett sermon by Joseph Smith. So nobody was able to create a bridge between those two. Nobody was able to explain that. It's like a can that they keep kicking it and they have no answer. So that's a big logical collision that they have in terms of two different positions about on the nature of God. And you know, that's why I'm going to them. I feel pity for them, and I preach him a biblical God who has been God from all eternity, and he's unchanging, the way Moroni 8:18 is reflecting what the Bible says. Because biblically, Psalms 90 verse 2, from everlasting to everlasting, you're God. And Malachi 3:6, it says, I'm Lord. He says, I'm Lord, I do not change. And Christ, he's the same, yesterday and today and forever. So God of the Bible, he doesn't change, he doesn't learn. God has always been God from all eternity. And that never changed. And what was God doing before the creation? Well, he was dwelling in glory because he doesn't need anything. And he is the source of all things. He created all things. Matter. Colossians 1:16, by him all things created in heaven and earth. So this video was in a way for those who witnessed to the Mormons, and also for the Mormons just to think about their own doctrines and their own positions. And in a way, I wanted to challenge the Mormons in this video to kind of provide some kind of answer to those two positions that they have. So in this video, I'm just going to end it as is, and maybe I'll make more videos, we'll see. Well, thank you, and you have a blessed day.